Hi, everyone. Today we're delighted to have Vinny Lingham of Civic on our show. Hi, Vinny. How are you doing?
Hi, great to be here.
Great. Good to have you. Just could you give us a brief explanation about Civic in case anyone hasn't heard about it just yet? Not likely, but maybe.
Well, yeah, you never know. So Civic's a blockchain-based identity platform. We're trying to recreate the physical world of identities digitally using blockchain technology, making sure that you can control your own data and who you share it with and how it gets revoked, etc. And we see a world where one day you don't have to pull out a driver's license or a passport or any physical to prove that you are who you say you are, and it makes for better transactions online, safer engagement with people, and hopefully getting rid of all that Twitter spam with fake accounts as well.
Cool. Very cool. So just let's talk about your ICO. Just over a year ago, you conducted a very successful ICO, raising $33 million. And when I was researching about your company, I was just astonished at looking at, the amount of VCs that actually back this project. I think there's 8 VCs on your website with a list of them. And, looking at all these ICO projects out there, it's just, it's an amazing figure. Anyone who tried to raise money with ICOs. And I just wanted to know if you could share, for fellow entrepreneurs, can share some information about how did that come about? I mean, is it from your network or from your reputation, or is it just VCs that were interested in your technology, or all of the above?
Yeah, I think all of the above. I mean, my previous company was called Gift. I sold that to First Data. I had a whole bunch of VC backers in that company. Most of them came along for the ride with Civic as well. So a large part of it was like, yeah, they made money with me. They came along for another ride.
Cool. So that's just, is there any dynamic or any like experience from your personal experience that you could share of how to speak with these VCs? Because obviously some of them are crypto VCs. It's not only traditional VCs. What are they looking for? What do they find in Civic? Is it the team? What could you share some details about that?
I mean, VCs, I think more often than not look at the team is a very important part of it. Do they like the people? Then it's, what's the market opportunity? How big is it going to be, etc. And also timing. I mean, the thing with VCs is that you tend to get the guys who like late stage stuff, so they won't go in on early stage deals unless they feel really good about the team. A lot of VCs have kind of migrated towards what they call Series B, Series C type deals. The Series A is really what used to be a Series B before. Mm-hmm. And I think what happened was that there was this void that was created where there wasn't a lot of early stage funding. And then the crypto market filled that void very quickly. But the downside of the crypto market is now we're giving people in what really is the seed and A stage way too much money to prove out what they're trying to do is viable. And so this is not going to end well, and it's really looking pretty shaky right now. But you can't give all this money to people with no proven technology or business plan just because it's all hyped up. And so you've got a situation where you've gone from VCs creating this funding void to the crowd kind of trying to fill this void. But the problem is that the crowd doesn't necessarily know better than the VCs. And so you have the VCs have a filter. They have a lot of things that they look for that makes people successful. And then the crowd kind of goes with whatever's hyped up. And so I think if you go after the hype cycle, it's kind of a recipe for disaster, and it's going to blow up at some point, probably sooner rather than later. But the VCs also became too tight with their wallets. So we'll find the right balance where we'll find the right level of funding for startups, but I think it's gone from one end to the other where good projects couldn't get funded by VCs, and now they're getting overfunded by the crowd, and to a point where all the crappy projects are also being overfunded as well because they're kind of all lumped together. And so we'll see how this plays out the next couple of years. But the party, late 2000 was a big party. Everyone was raising tons of money, even at 2018. The past year has been kind of crazy, but it all normalized at some point.
It's funny that you brought it up, the sum that these projects are raising because when I'm meeting with all these projects, they're like, okay, we'll raise as much as we can. And I'm like, okay, why don't you just raise as much as you need according to some business plan, roadmap, whatever, it's like the
That
normal
sounds
world.
crazy.
Yeah, what?
Raising as much as you need? What a terrible idea. Always raise more.
But what would you say to these? I mean, some of them are experienced CEOs and entrepreneurs and everything. Like, would you say like the wild west times of the ICO hype of just going, to crypto whales and they'll shower you with their Bitcoins? Is that like that maturing of our industry? How would you kind of give us that perspective from, I don't know, 2-3 years ago up till today?
Look, I totally understand where these guys are coming from. They struggle to raise money. They don't really have reputations to look after. They can fail. Might as well enjoy yourself when you can, right? Like it sounds very crass, but that's the reality. You go and follow some of these guys on Instagram and wherever else on Twitter. They're buying Lamborghinis and whatever else. They've never really made money before. They don't know how to build companies.
No, but I'm actually talking about the experienced ones. I'm seeing, some of them coming from traditional startups and traditional VC money coming into ICOs, and they think that there's this X factor, is just this like magic powder that suddenly, the world of business is not acting as usual.
Yeah, but there's no repercussions, right? What are the repercussions for these guys? And the way they look at it is they're not selling equity; it's a token. A lot of these guys are happy to be one-hit wonders, and so. I don't know. I have a long career, and I have a longer term view on things. And I think if this is successful, I think everyone will do well, and in Civic, etc. And we look at it from a very, but I look at it from a long term perspective. This is my reputation on the line. Whatever I do next, if I do something next, I want it to be he did really well at Civic and Gift and all his previous companies, and he has a good reputation. Some of these guys, they may have been raised money from VCs before, but they don't really have reputations. No one's heard of them. They can disappear on a yacht in Greece somewhere, and no one's going to know, and they can take the money with them. So it's not. I think a lot of people out there don't have enough skin in the game relative to the amount of money they raised. Like I tell people, I raised less money in Civic than I sold my last company for. I mean, how many entrepreneurs in the ICO space can say that?
True. Very true. Actually, the skin in the game that you're talking about, I mean, when you're saying your reputation is on the line, you have over 160,000 followers on your Twitter account. You have like 17,000 tweets, and you're very active in the social space. And do you find that this kind of direct communication with your audience, with your community of developers and everything, could you give some tips or advice? I'm assuming it's very candid, it's very authentic, right? You're that kind of person. You're not hiding or trying to be, you don't have other people managing your account, but could you just, talk about the benefits of having that open kind of mindset when you're looking on to embark on this ICO route of having, the crowd become your investors?
Yeah, well, I have one Twitter account. I don't have multiple accounts. I don't have any fake sock puppet accounts. I'm very direct. I speak my mind. I don't take, and people don't like this, by the way. I mean, I've been called everything from stupid to ignorant to, like, you should see the tweet. People on Twitter, it's the biggest cesspool. You know what? The most insulting people on Twitter are the ones hiding behind some sort of fake account. Okay, because it's just the nature of it. Like, it's stuff they would never say in real life to someone's face, but they'll say it on Twitter. And so, but I think I'm again. My tweets are often sarcastic. I try to be very humorous when I can. I try to make it fun and engaging, and I attract the best and the worst, and it's okay. But I'm trying to be genuine. Like, the things that irk me on Twitter is people think that I care about like money as much as they do. See, a lot of people who are like, oh, Vinny, like, they'll say some stupid money related comment. I'm like, guys, I don't care about that. That's just so irrelevant. Even the guys on Twitter, they go, oh, Vinny, you sold your Bitcoins at whatever, 1,500 or 12. No, but like
that old argument. Oh my God.
No, but like, first of all, like, when you give a trading call, it's over a period of time. It's like, for the next week or two or whatever, a month. Like, hey, I don't think it's going to go over this amount. I'm going to sell at this place. I'll buy back later on, whatever it is. Secondly, like, even now, the Bitcoin price is only up 5x. No one says, what did you do with that money? Did you get more than 5x return on it? They don't ask intelligent questions like that. They don't look at opportunity cost of capital. I mean, let's assume I made more than 5x. Now what? Do you think that's still a bad move, selling at 1,200? Yeah, like, so like people are just stupid sometimes. You can't cure stupidity. But like, my point is, on Twitter, I try to be very like, what's the word?
Authentic.
Authentic and real. Like, what you see is what you get. And unfortunately, people get very personal and they love attacking. I mean, like on Twitter, I think it's a good place for conversation. But like these ad hominem attacks against me and other people, it's kind of crazy. And a lot of it is around the whole Bitcoin debate right now. Like, I'm a big Bitcoin fan. We built our platform on Bitcoin. I've been into Bitcoin for years. And over the past year, I was just very disappointed in the way Bitcoin community has responded to some of the developments. Like, I just think that it's people who care more about money and the wrong things than like actually making the world a better place. And so I'm entitled to my opinion that I think we're on the wrong track. And I make a very important point of saying, well, a large part of the community worked hard towards trying to create a payment network for Bitcoin. It's being dismantled, and this is why. And we have good rational arguments for it, but it's always like, well, it's just people just don't know how to have a proper conversation. So I think it's probably better that they're hiding behind keyboards than being in public.
Just a few minutes into the interview, and I already understand why you have so many followers. You're just so much fun.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know, obviously Civic caters some of these ICO projects. You're catering the actual industry itself, and you're giving, as enablers for KYC, know your customer, and identity verifications. And it's interesting for me. Can you shed some light on, the transition from the wild non-KYC ICO days to where we are today in regards to, actually raising capital from individuals who need to overcome KYC process?
Yeah, so that's interesting because it's very much, it feels like years ago. It was less than 12 months ago. I think we've moved to a point now where when money is being transferred and they classify Bitcoin as money to a large extent, and Ethereum, etc., and parties are busy exchanging these coins for tokens and ICOs, there needs to be a KYC process as part of the sort of global anti-money laundering protocols and know your customer. And so Civic provides very easy ID infrastructure. You can plug it in and people can start verifying themselves and submitting documents to us and IDs. And if a Civic user has already done it for another ICO, then they don't have to do it again. And we've got large numbers of users now. So a lot of our users have already done this process before. So you're making it really easy for people who've already done and been through a Civic ICO or a Civic sort of a company that uses Civic for ICOs to go use yours. And you'll have better take up and less friction, because instead of having, when you go and advertise during an ICO and people come there and they're going to submit their passport to you, their driver's license, their utility bill, all their stuff, and do accredited investor checks. That's stuff that which a lot of our users have done. And so if it's existing Civic users, there's a very low friction for them to just come in and buy some of your tokens and use our platform. So we're building a network effect in our business.
How many supporters did you have during your ICO? Could you share that information?
We had about 10,000 people buying tokens, and that was a year ago. Yeah. From the latest numbers, we see about 50 to 100,000 people owning Civic tokens right now. So and that's less than the number of users we've had. So we've got a pretty big user base.
And when you're looking at, that crowd sale part, because what I'm seeing today, is another trend. At least with the projects that I've been involved in, that they're like, okay, we don't want to raise the crowd sale part of it, right? We just want to do the private sale, just go on the roadshow or whatever, and not deal with the crowd. And for a platform like Civic, obviously the crowd will be your go-to market, right? Because these are the people who actually need to obtain their online identities. And how would you say, how would you look at that? Are you as an entrepreneur and as a project who did conduct a crowd sale, what are the tips that you would give the audience as to how to treat that part of the ICO campaign?
I think, it always depends on the team, the product, the market. It's a very conditional question, I think. Some teams are building protocols which are extremely complicated.
Yeah.
So the average person doesn't understand it. So it just depends. I think it's what are you building? Who's your audience? Who's going to buy? Who wants to support you? That sort of thing. So I can't give you a straight answer to that.
Fair enough. When I looked at your white paper, I saw that your token economy obviously rewards both the identity validators as well the users themselves who share their identities. And some of the identity validators are like financial institutions or governments who hold the actual validation of your identity. Is it is there like some sort of a challenge here in or an education or a learning curve as to these institutions actually adopting a token or crypto model in order to, take part in this ecosystem? How do you onboard these validators and incentivize them to actually take part in Civic's whole ecosystem and economy?
Yeah, so we think it has to be demand driven. So like any marketplace, the biggest problem is how do you get buyers and sellers on both sides. So we're focusing on demand generation first as a company. How do we launch a product called ID codes. We've got some other products in the hopper, but even just our KYC product that we're using right now, that all requires ID verification. So as those numbers increase and we start doing millions per month or millions a year, whatever the number is, that's going to bring in the validators on the back end to supply. So it's how do you start a marketplace? Demand and supply, and we like to start with demand first.
So that would be looping into my previous question. So the crowd coming in and actually understanding your product, understanding the offering and wanting to take part in this and downloading the app and uploading their identities and going through the KYC process, that would be the demand side that drives the other validators in.
Exactly.
But are you seeing like additional validators that would be like decentralized institutions or anything that that we could validate our identity without having to go through these traditional institutions?
It totally could be. It all depends on the supplier, but the system will be fully decentralized, so anyone can supply data. Whether or not people trust your data is up to you and your reputation and what people think of you, but that's not us.
I saw that at the beginning of the year, you guys launched Civic's community developer program with a supporting bounty program. And you guys, you announced it was very festive and there was a lot of traction, obviously. Can you just share with us how you can build like a strong community of developers who are enthusiastic about your project and engage them to help improve Civic's platform and offering?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, we're moving to open source pretty soon. So once we have an open source platform, we've got a lot of code written. It's just not open source for security reasons and a couple other reasons. But once it open sources, I think developers will be pretty excited to see what they can do on top of our platform. So we're going to be moving towards that. Yeah, and I think that's part of the whole culture, right? How do you build open source software? How do you make it stable and robust and extensible and give developers a sense of ownership of the work they're doing on it?
But how do you do that? I mean, because you're a serial entrepreneur. You came from the traditional startup world in a very centralized, I'm assuming, organizations, and now you're coming into this ecosystem. You're in a decentralized environment. And how do you engage those, the investors, the crowd who want to invest in you, the bounty programs for the developers, like building that ecosystem from the ground up with all the stakeholders in your ecosystem in order to make sure that you've decentralized yourself, but you've really incentivized everyone to take part in your ecosystem?
I think it's about giving people the dream. People want to work on projects that help them get to where they want to, like, it's what's personal to you. I think no one really in this space does things just for the money, hopefully, except maybe the traders. But the developers and stuff want to work on things that changes the world. So what we're offering the world is better consumer privacy, keeping your data out of the hands of big corporations, decentralizing information. And so we think that developers that want to be part of a vision of the world where your information is owned by yourself, it's fully decentralized, it's just on a network switch effectively, and you can control it, you can revoke access, etc. That's an appealing project for a lot of people. We think that attracts people. So I think as an entrepreneur, to advise other entrepreneurs is you got to build a vision around what you're doing that entices people to want to follow your vision. And if you can't, then doesn't mean it's bad. It just means that you're not having any followers. It's going to be harder to pull it off. But
how do you communicate that vision? I mean, it's not the the traditional kind of board meetings and also just rallying the team and communicating the vision, but rather you have all these different groups of people that you need to communicate something on all these channels that are, you know, broadcast, right? How do you manage the communication?
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I mean, I use Medium for blog posts. I use Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, just social media. But writing podcasts, you know, video podcasts, you know, audio podcasts. I think it's important. Just getting, you know, reaching people. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of people vying for attention from everyone. So I think it's just making sure that you spend enough time and energy on being present.
So it's getting back to being authentic, right? When you're looking at, you know, at Civic and the whole identity, you know, everything that we've seen for the past year about Cambridge Analytica and stuff like that, do you see like a conscious shift in people and the actual conscious of people, the individuals who need to protect or own their own identities or their own data? Do you see anything, any triggers or any conscious shift that is occurring that this is the moment in which we can actually serve the blockchain technology? We can actually serve these decentralized solutions that people see that this is a real live problem that they're encountering?
I think people have become more and more aware of these issues, privacy issues, etc. I don't think that the solutions to them are very obvious just yet. And I think the regulations are coming in, which will start, you know, meaning that people have to, like, I think people are becoming more aware of things like GDPR, etc. And so there's a lot of re-architecture that needs to be done in the way data is stored centrally, and how to decentralize it and how to make it more robust. But I think it's one of the, you know, privacy and data is one of the things that everyone collectively are more annoyed about it than individually.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. That's exactly my question. You know, oh, it's horrible, and then you go on and you post, you know, stuff
yeah,
about your personal life, and people can profile
exactly,
you and know exactly what you're thinking. You know, so
exactly.
that's exactly that thing that I'm talking
No
about.
one reads the terms and conditions when you sign up on websites. Like, no one like cares, right? So collectively, this is why governments are stepping up and putting more regulations in, because companies have been taking it a bit too far. Because people are just like, I just want this. I don't care about the terms and conditions. It's 5,000 words. Like, I'm not gonna read that right now. Click done. Here's all my information. You know, there's 2 billion people using Facebook as an example.
Yeah. Okay. So when you're looking at, you know, at Civic, you're actually building a company, thank God. What are your like short-term and long-term milestones or goals that you would like to see in order for Civic to kind of, you know, become successful in the adoption, or at least my question would be, you know, because I'm looking at Civic and I think that this is like a true solution that could help, you know, blockchain become something that is a reality and not a theoretical or something that we're still experimenting with, right? This is something that we actually need. It integrates with everything, with our whole online presence. Do you think this could be the killer app, or at least the enabler that enables us to kind of get into the blockchain era on a mass scale?
I don't think the masses are going to care about blockchain, to be honest.
Of course not.
I think they just care about what services are available now as a result of blockchain. So in fact, I mean, most people won't even care about it. They'll be, you know, oh, I can do this new cool thing. That's great. It's got blockchain enablement. It doesn't matter to them. It's like, well, it's just more about what can we enable it. I think a large part of it is how do we build services that governments and companies around the world can trust, that are decentralized. Because right, like the large part of centralization is that there's a lack of trust between entities and parties. And how do you build trustless applications but they're accepted as being trustless? And so I think governments are sort of trying to get their heads around the notion of things that would be trustless, and big companies as well. So I think we're a couple of years away, but I think there'll be some killer app out there that rises above everything else, and users start using it en masse, and it can only be done using a blockchain.
But how do you persuade all these players to you know, take part in a trustless environment in which, you know, the actual design of the environment is what gives it trust?
The drivers there would be legislative, primarily, I think. But then also, you know, I mean, centralized services have got better performance than decentralized, just generally scaling, etc. So that's one tick against decentralization. You know, it seems to be that money is the most important sort of use case for crypto right now. So things like Bitcoin, sensitive resistance, etc. But it's got its own issues around scaling, so they have to deal with that. They try to do Lightning Network. You've got other, Moneros and Zcashes and sort of privacy coins, but they've got legal issues as well because if those coins ever got too big, Secret Service is already fighting against them. I think that it's just we got to find the right use cases that take us to the mainstream. I'm not sure what they are. I think it's just good that we have 3,000-4,000 experiments out there trying to figure this out, and I'm sure someone will get it right.
Yeah, absolutely. But in regards to regulation, everyone, like all of us, want regulation to step in and kind of have this whole market mature. But just shifting to the whole, security token versus utility token kind of debate. Aren't we kind of not doing what we set out to do when we're just tokenizing securities? I mean, we're not actually giving access or democratized access to the crowds in order to invest in all these projects that, would like to get funded. What is your take, on just looking at this whole thing as, an active participant in this industry?
Well, I mean, I think what it's doing is it's giving access to people who want access, right? So if people want access to this stuff, they can get it. These coins are traded on secondary exchanges, so you don't have to go sign up for an ICO, and sometimes you can't get into certain ICOs. I just think it's evolution. I think right now there's just experimentation upon experimentation, and so it's just going to take us time to see how things play out. I think anyone can predict what this industry will look like in a year from now. I think security tokens are going to be big, but I think it's premature to think that. So security tokens will be big, but I don't think it'll be what people think it is. We're not going to have equity moving to the blockchain anytime soon. It'll take a couple of years, but you may have like ERC 721 collectibles, that sort of thing. More digital CryptoKitty type products, and some other things like that. I just think that the hype's died down in crypto right now, and you can't make money every day by just putting more money in. So we're going to go through a bit of a bear market. I don't think we've hit the bottom yet. We're at 60-something, 6700. I think the bottom is lower. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just think these things take time. People are just impatient.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Just to wrap up, could you just give us your vision as to, in regards to, Civic specifically, obviously, but also to the blockchain or crypto industry in general? Like, how do you see, what are the challenges, or how do you see us kind of set forth in the next 3-5 years, whatever? If you can predict what's yet to come, at least in your vision, in your perspective, and from your experience, and you're a serial entrepreneur, you've seen things, how to read the trends and see where things are heading towards. I'd love to just pick your brain in regards to that.
My expectation is that we're in a bear market for at least the rest of this year and into next year, maybe a bit longer, who knows. And I think we just have to wait for a lot of these projects to fail. I think the failure rate in this market is going to be 95%. I think we're probably left with a couple of hundred coins at the end of the day that actually work. So it's going to take a while for this whole thing to unwind. You can't have 50,000 people working for 5,000 companies worldwide, making no money, adding no value to society, making no revenues, and just living off crypto. Someone's got to pay the bills. And so I think it's just there's going to be a nice deleveraging, and I think we'll be recharging for the next, call it next 6 months, a year, 2 years. I think that the bearish side of me says we'll be in a crypto market until probably end of next year. The bullish side says we could get out this year, maybe. I think the middle sort of ground, Vinny says we're probably looking at another 9 months or so before we start coming out of this, but we'll see.
And in regards to to fellow entrepreneurs who want to to fund their projects, and they do want to go and become decentralized and adopt blockchain technology and build a real token economy, like what would be your advice to them as to kind of going through this phase and not being the 95% who are actually failing?
Well, I think focus on fundamentals. The first, most important fundamental for me in the crypto world is if you're going to put out a token, have a good token economy design. So understand like what is the purpose of your token, how does it function, how does value accrue to it, and understand what you're building and making sure that it works. Like it's to me, I've seen a lot of the crap out there where it's, well, here's a token, or great, what's it for? How do you use it? What's the purpose of it? So these are things that I think are overlooked. And then the next thing is, you got to find product market fit. Who's going to use this? What's going to get the usage up? Most token projects out there have no transactions at all. No one's using any of these products. So if no one's going to use whatever you're building, it's worth nothing.
Really? How does that formula?
Revelation. So a lot of these projects out there are just not being used by anyone. And it's easy to fake usage. A lot of these projects have fake usage, like bots, like trading coins back and forth.
Yeah, but these things that you're saying, they're excuse me, but they're somewhat trivial, for entrepreneurs. So how come when you go onto the ICO roller coaster, suddenly all these entrepreneurs think that it's going to be different, that the business logic doesn't apply? Sorry?
It's always different because the hard stuff people don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's hard. Let's ignore it and hope it goes away. Let's hope it's a paradigm shift because this time it's different.
So listen, guys, it's going to be hard, but if you're really into it and you're enthusiastic about it, just like Vinny from Civic, then maybe you're on a good start to building a successful business. Vinny, it's just been a pleasure. Thank you so much for allocating time for this interview, and best of luck with Civic. Take care.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye-bye.